Hello everybody, this is Tabitha from the Zadis Project, and I thought today I would go ahead and put together a little card and show you just how I put the card together and just have a little fun today. So the image that I'm using is Twin Marker from Bertie Brown. I colored him up with my Copics. On my website you'll see a full list of which Copic colors that I actually used. And the paper that I decided to use was Monster Life by Karina Gardner. It's a digital collection that I bought from jessicasprague.com. I absolutely love it. I printed out some of the embellishments that come along with it. I printed out 4 different kind of patterns for it. And then we'll be pairing that up as this one will be paired up with some epoxy little bubble caps, which are absolutely fun, and they add a little flair to it. I chose this set because I wanted a clean and simple kind of card. I wanted blues and yellows right now is really what I'm into. So usually what I do is I color my image, and then I pick my papers. This time I kind of did 2 separate things, and I'm putting it together. Because, well, this is a darker blue than this teal. When I put it on the gray, it matches up decently enough that I think will still make a fun card. So never put things aside and say, they won't work. Just try it, and we'll see if it comes out fine. So I had already printed out the digital papers. What I do is I size them down to my card blank. My card blank is 13.5 centimeters square. So each of these papers is actually sized to 13.3. That way the card can easily slip in and out of the envelope by being a little bit smaller. Also, when I size that down, what it also does, it scales the pattern. And for a card, you actually want the pattern to scale for, the smaller size. If I had a 12 by 12 printer, I would definitely want my pattern bigger, because as a 12 by 12 paper, that is usually bigger. It's all about the scale. You can take a look at your different 12 by 12 papers, and then if you have the same set in a 6 by 6 pad, you'll see a pattern difference. So that's why I like the digital papers, is that I can scale them however I want. I can cut them down to whatever size I want without having excess over, actually. So I have these 3 backing papers that we're going to use. I was kind of fiddling a little bit earlier, and what I think I'll do is use this as the back paper, and then put the yellow one in between, and then put the striped one there. You'll notice that I've done heavy distressing, and how I do that is I use my ruler. They come out printed out as a square, and so I just take my ruler and just rip the white paper, the border off of it, and it leaves this really nice kind of edge. I see an edge that isn't distressed, so I can show you. This is the tool that I use. It is a distresser. I know that Tonic has this. This is just a generic from my local craft store. And all I do is grab the blade and drag it upon it. I used to do this with scissors, so scissors work well, but I like to keep my scissors decently sharp. But if you have crappy kind of kid scissors, would actually work too. So that distresses it. There is a difference on the distressing. Let's see if we can see a difference. This is the side that I've used the tool on, and this side and this top side are the ones that I've used the ruler on. So there's more distressing with the ruler. If there was too much distressing from the ruler, I could take the tool and run it along that same edge, and then it'll tone it down a little bit. So various things. I really like the distressing. It adds texture to it, and since I can't do straight lines very well, it really does hide a lot of those kind of things. So we'll grab these first. Like I said, we're going to do backing paper there. I think we will tear this down to, I do not measure, by the way. I'm not an exacting person. And I think these 2 will be squares. It's usually when I'm looking at my secondary patterns, I decide whether I'm going to do die cut. And for here, I just will kind of eyeball it and square it down to this roughly the size that I want. A lot of the times, especially when I'm dealing with digital papers, I actually create the layout online on my computer. There's different programs that I use. I use my Silhouette Studio, I use Photoshop, and Serif Craft Artist 2, which is a really good one. That way I can see before I print it out what I'm going to do, and then what I usually do is that I would already have these sized down to what I wanted, so then all I have to do is rip the white border off instead of trying to eyeball the size. I do want this askew. Also, if you're going to matte right now, would be a good time to do that. I have a ruler called Perfect Square, or Perfect Layers, and they also have the Perfect Square. Love them. Absolutely love those rulers. But I don't think I'm going to matte today. I think there's enough pattern and enough layers for me if I'm going to mail this off to the US, which is usually what I do. I don't want too much. So we're going to have him going this way. What about if we do a strip that long? Yes, I like that idea. And yes, I actually do talk to myself while I'm doing my cards. It's kind of funny when my Sambo, my boyfriend, is sitting next to me, and I'll just start talking to myself, and he usually is watching some kind of TV show, and so he takes his headset off, and he's like, what did you say? And I'm like, oh, I'm just talking to myself. Anybody else do that? So I like that. Then we will pair up this with the image, and then we'll have lots of area to place and place the different things. I like that. I usually don't place the embellishments. I leave that until the last bit. Because I know I'm not using ribbon, I'll go ahead and attach these to the card blank. A lot of the times, if I know I'm going to use ribbon, or even if there's an option for ribbon or twine, I layer everything onto that base DP designer paper. Then I attach the whole thing. But since it's a cast card, I know I don't need to do that. Speaking of scale, my adhesive that I'm using is scrapbook adhesives, Easy Runner. I do like it, especially it gives me a little time before it becomes permanent. So if I need to pull things up, then I have that, which is nice. I do usually use my advanced tape glider, but it would kind of dominate the screen, so I have to use my little scrapbook adhesives. I also go back and curl up the edges and distress a little more. I kind of like a white little border along, and I do this, it's kind of my style, but it's also to hide any imperfections. I'm just not a perfect person, and my crafting is clumsy, as much as I'm clumsy, so, which, that's the good thing about art and stuff. You don't have to be perfect, you really don't. Just create to create and have fun with it. So, well, I know I'm going to put a little more. I know when you're looking at a card, you have the upper top, the top, and you have the bottom, and usually your focus is more on the top, and that's why with embellishments you try to bring it around the sides and to the bottom. But I know for paper-wise, if I like one side better, one part of distressing better than the other part, I put that towards the top. I did it on this bottom DP as well. The less distressed area is on the bottom, while the more distress is on the top. It's just where our eyes look, especially on a card when we have an image in the center. That's where our focus is. So a little trick there. I definitely have done that, and then through layers and through embellishments, I have covered up with mistakes that I found after I printed out a paper. Like my ink decided to black out a section. I just hide that so I don't have to print it out again. Try to save some ink there. Okay, I pushed this down pretty well because, as I said, this gives me a little time, and sometimes I don't want that time. I like layers on mine. I actually like to lift things up. So this one is going to be layered up on, you can use 3D foam tape like I have here. It has more contact surface, so that's why I use it. There's also pop dots, glue dots, lots of different adhesives. I don't know about you, but I realized the other day as I was making cards that I was grabbing at least 4 different types of adhesives, just to make sure that everything I needed to get down was getting down. So the 3D foam tape is always with me. My ATG or the scrapbook adhesives. Mini glue dots are definitely a good thing to have around for embellishments. I have liquid glue. I usually just bring them all out. Okay. Again, I'm eyeballing. And yes, that does make for some crooked cards out there. But if they weren't handmade, then then they would be utterly perfect. So the little shortcomings of my cards is what makes them handmade and, from the heart. Okay, I also have another little trick that I do with my images. This is an old mouse pad that likes to attract lots of dust and cat hair. And what I have is I also, a lot of people, we have these. These are styluses. This is actually the bottom of, well, it was a craft knife that the top kind of fell out, but I really liked the bottom of this. It's big and it's great for a stylus. With almost all my images, I pop them up with my 3D foam tape, and also what I do is I slightly emboss them. Hence why this is a very thick pad, mouse pad. And I take my large stylus and I just go around in a circle. And it just slightly embosses the image, and I really like the way it looks. And I do that especially when I'm doing my 3D paper piecing, which I do plan to do a video of that soon. So that's what it is like when it's embossed. It's kind of curled, which is what we want. And that translates onto the card really, really well. So put that away. And now do small there. That's part of the reason why I really like the 3D foam tape, is that I can shape it however I want. And again, still keeping that large amount of surface area versus like the pop dots, which are pretty small for me. I want surface area, especially for my 3D paper piecing. And I tend to over tape, especially with foam. This 3D foam tape is scrapbook adhesives as well, and this is really strong, and I'm very pleased with that. But I had previous ones. I had a 3M one, and I had a generic kind of one, and those did not adhere very well. It gave me the lift I wanted, so what I would do is I would take my ATG gun on top of it. Adds a lot of time to my crafting, which I didn't like, but at least it got it done. Okay, we're going to set this guy. Try to get him a little symmetrical. At this point, I usually step back, kind of look at it, and if the placement is all right, then I press him down. So, we're actually almost done. Now it's about where I want to put all the embellishments. I'm not a big embellishment person either, funnily enough. I definitely have grown into that lately, and I really prefer the paper embellishments and creating my own embellishments. But one thing I did find is that these Epiphany Crafts epoxy, they have buttons, they have stars, they have flags. Oh, I just love them, love. And even though I don't have the tool, I still can use them. So I have a strip of paper. I just pop it down. I make sure that it's pressed down. And then I take my scissors and I cut around it. And if there's a little extra paper around the edges of it, or I want it a little bit smoother, I go ahead and take a nail file, and or you can take some sanding paper as well, and just file down the side of that. But it looks good to me. I just really like that it incorporates any pattern paper, so I don't have to have, you know, stacks and stacks of these epoxy kind of embellishments. They're all there. Okay, I'm actually really digging this placement here. So that's about gluing it all down. Okay, we have the wow, there's this. Okay, so apply adhesive on one side, pop it up. And adhere that. One thing, if you can see, I do have problems. I have 2 cats, and it's spring, so they're shedding, so most of my cards have a little cat hair. And I mean, it's how it is with a pet owner. People just have to understand that, and since I don't sell my cards, I make sure that my aunt, who I give my cards to, she knows I have cats. So I use 3 mini dots there. I'm going to apply the epoxy. And if you see on this embellishment, I went over on my tape, so I just folded over. It still will lay just as flat, so get that up. A little more. Scrapbook adhesives, once it becomes permanent, it really does sit well. Nope, don't like that. I kind of changed my mind on this one. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's what I'm meaning. It gives me a little sign. I decided that I want foam on the back. And so now I can lift it up, grab the foam, and put it back down. Excellent. Well, I mean, really, this is the end of my card. It is clean and simple. I have 4 different patterns on there from the Karina Gardner set. I have the cutest little image from Bertie Brown, and I was so happy to pick this up before she closed up her shop. And I will send this off to my aunt, and hopefully some kid who really needs it will appreciate it. So thanks for watching, and give me any feedback. I really love just hearing your thoughts about the cards, products that you might find that I might like, or just tips and tricks. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.